welcome to the 311 Griffin YouTube channel. I'm Max. Not really. Um, the picture on the screen has nothing to do with what I'm going to talk about today, but I just got back from the Lone Star Le Mans with my friend Warlock and my brother Dr. Grady. Had a great time there. Got some good pictures. These are just some of the better ones. This is the number 51 car's first pit stop, about an hour into the race. Here you can see a little bit of carbon fiber flying from where these two cars had a little bump and run. And then these are just later in the race um, as they were coming around turn 16. And then turn 16 again. Anyway, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. I just had a lot of fun. This is a very different video. As I've said in a couple of previous videos, I am a Christian. That probably turns some people off, but hopefully it doesn't, because that's not necessarily what my channel is always about. But this video, it's not exactly about that, but we're going to touch on the subject. Sorry, I crunch ice a lot. I had the opportunity to teach my first Sunday school class on Sunday. And I was kind of honored to do it, but a little nervous about it. I'd never done that before. And the subject that I chose was basically joy and stress, and how those things are actually related a little bit. And I won't necessarily get into the joy. Like, the joy and happiness are not the same thing. We corrupt the ideas of love and joy to mean things like infatuation and happiness, and those aren't the same thing. So we talked a lot about that, but the main thing that I want to talk about here today is stress, and like getting past your yield point. And I'm just going to draw this in GIMP because I can. Let's just put a couple lines in here real quick. And where this comes from, where I started recognizing this, is I used to do materials testing for my career. For about 3 years, I did materials testing specifically on polyethylene and polypropylene pipe that was fused together, and then we ripped it apart violently to test it. And when you rip it apart, you put it on a machine, and the top part is stationary and has a load cell on it that measures force. The bottom part is hooked to a moving hydraulic cylinder that you can't see my bottom hand here. So top part load cell, bottom part moving hydraulic cylinder that pulls down and actually rips the thing apart, and it measures force and time and displacement or distance moved. And I got to do a lot of trainings on that, and I just started noticing some stuff about the natural world, and about even some things we can't see, and how the world works. So as a Christian, I believe that the Bible is God breathed, God inspired, the inspired word, however you want to say it. I think God authored the Bible through people, and I think God also authored the universe. And if that's true, and I think that there's some very strong evidence to suggest that that's true. If you don't believe that, this stuff still can apply in a secular world. And obviously applies in a secular world. But if that is true, then we really need to study God's entire creation. You can't just study the Bible as a Christian. You have to study the natural world as a Christian. And if you're a non-believer, then you can, if you want, you can kind of ignore the Bible and just study the natural world. That sort of works from a non-believer's perspective. So, anyway, getting back to this, I didn't actually pick a color there. Since I try to study both and see like what makes sense with everything, with all of God's creation, I started noticing some patterns and stuff, and this started happening when I was doing materials testing. So basically a plastic sample, a good sample, they can look very different, and different materials look different ways, but basically a plastic sample will have a pretty linear section, and then I'm going to try to draw this a bit, and then we'll zoom out, and then it kind of does this number, and then it comes over like this, and then it goes almost straight down. Okay, so that's kind of a plastic curve sample. And what's going on here is this part right here, roughly, is called the elastic part of the curve, or it's elastic deformation, meaning kind of like a rubber band. You stretch it and let go, it goes back to the same size and shape that it was before, right? This is and if you stretch a rubber band long enough, it will yield and it will start to do permanent deformation. But this is an elastic portion through here. So with these plastics, if we pulled on them to, and sorry, this is force and this is displacement. We used inches, and this was pounds of force. You can do some different functionality. This could also be time in seconds if you wanted, or milliseconds. It was usually milliseconds because this was a very rapid and violent test. You get up here somewhere is the yield point, and then after the yield point, work hardening starts happening and the thing starts to stretch. So in the case of plastics, it does get a little bit weaker. You know, there's a different force. Like this is our yield force, and then this is like our permanent kind of work hardening force or post yield force, I guess. But it plateaus out and comes out here to the breaking point, right? And one interesting thing about this is that the area under the curve, which, you know, this would include this little section up here, the area under the curve is the amount of energy that that sample absorbed. You could think of this in a different way, that it's kind of the amount of work that the sample did. That's a little bit different. But obviously, if your I don't want to do that. Let's do that. If your sample comes up here and like breaks right at the yield point, this area is a lot smaller than the total area, obviously. Okay, so another thing to keep in mind is that steel, if steel has the same yield or elastic portion of the curve, um, and it'll probably be a little different. Different materials are different, but once it yields, a lot of steels, like modern steels, will actually come up like this, and those are usually slower tests. They test them like over time because steel is stronger, but it also it's just different. The physical properties are different. I don't necessarily need to get into it, and I don't even fully understand them all, but because I didn't test steel. But a lot of times they'll look something more like that, and then they come up here to like an X, and their breaking point is just denoted like that, where ours actually showed the force coming down, or like a downward spike. But these tend to get stronger. And once again, the area under this curve would be the amount of energy absorbed by that sample before it broke. Okay, so what does all this mean? Why am I talking about it from a Christian perspective as it relates to joy and trials and stress? Okay, so I submit that our minds and our bodies, and even you could say our spirit, works very similarly, maybe not the same, but very similarly to physical things in the world. And I think that I can make that jump because what do you do if you want to get your muscles stronger? You work them out until you damage them. You get them past the yield point. What happens if you want to join the Navy SEALs? They're going to push you past your yield point to prove to you that your body can do more than you thought it could do. So what I'm saying is that let me try to pick a different color that I haven't done before that'll show up. Let's try some hot pink stuff, right? Okay. If there's stress, this would be the force. If there's stress applied to your life, mental stress, emotional stress, physical stress, doesn't really matter. If there's stress applied to your life, and let's say it comes up to about, let's say this is your curve, like this that I'm showing here is your curve for whatever it is we're talking about. And a force gets applied to your life and it comes up to about right here, and then it goes away. You didn't go through any permanent change. As soon as it goes away, you snap back down to this level, whatever this is. You know, this is your original size and shape, mechanical properties, mental properties, whatever it is. You go right back to that. But if you get past this point with this force, and especially it depends on the material you're using. I've seen stress strain graphs for chocolate, I've seen stress strain grass for wood. They all behave differently. So this analogy can fall apart if you get onto some different materials. But um, if you get past your yield point, you actually get stronger. Now, if you're using this curve as an example, you could kind of get weaker, but you're going to be able to do a lot more work. You're going to start work hardening in this section right here. The only thing that I think you really have to worry about is not getting to the breaking point. And unfortunately, you don't know the breaking point until you get to it sometimes. So that's where our friends and family and fellow Christians can come into play. Our like the people closest to us. We need to have people around us that we trust and um, that love us and that we love and all that kind of stuff, and that makes this kind of stuff actually work. But my submission to the Sunday school class was that God needs us beyond this point. We have to get past our yield point to undergo permanent change. Now, that's not to say that the permanent change is always a good change. Some people get past this yield point and the change is negative, and that's something we have to watch out for because it can happen to all of us. But God needs us past this yield point. So it's not really a comfortable thing to think about. And it's not really a comfortable thing for me because I'm not very good at this. I don't really like being above, say, right here. Like this is about my limit on stress. And I don't like getting above that point. And I start getting really cranky and frustrated. And I don't want to do anything when I get past that point. But we really need to be past our yield point. And I want to think of myself as like not necessarily the man of steel, but I think we get stronger when we get past our yield point. And so like if you just try to look for opportunities to kind of make yourself intentionally uncomfortable in your career or your biblical study or like I don't know, I do a lot well I did DCS videos on my channel. I haven't been doing so many lately. But if you're jumping into DCS and or any video game or any hobby or activity or whatever, if you jump into that and you just view yourself as being like sort of having the material properties of steel and saying like I've got to get myself past my yield point and past the sort of the top end of what I think my comfort zone is so that I can learn better, then I think that you'll be better off in the long run. Most of us learn better from failure than success. So I should be a very smart person right now, but I'm not. Um, so the failure point is like beyond this yield point, right? So anyway, that's my submission. I don't need to drone on about it. That's my submission, and that is what I'd like to share with you guys today. Again, very different video style, but I was just kind of interested in this. I've been thinking about it for a well since 2011 basically. So yeah, it's been 13 years or so since I've been thinking about this concept and like studying it and just trying to understand it a little bit better. And there were a lot of scriptures that I found in the Bible while I was studying for this Sunday school class that sort of gave some credibility to this idea. So anyway, I wanted to share it. That is all. You guys take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Thank you for watching. Happy flying.